Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with Rethink Coaching.
Hello and welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 32. I'm Tony Caliendo, Master Coach here at Rethink Coaching, and I want to thank you for spending some time with me today and investing your time with me. I say this often, time is our greatest asset, and the fact that you're willing to share it with me means so much, and I appreciate it, and I want to respect you. So today I want to peel back the curtain and share with you one of the tools that I use, and I use frequently to help me stay centered and balanced in what we can consider to be an ever-changing world and ever-changing business opportunities for those of us that are entrepreneurs or leaders. And this is a tool that I learned years ago that I really do attribute to helping me get out of frenzy, helping me get out of fear, helping me get out of feeling completely out of whack, even though I know I'm doing the right stuff. Because we have all of these stories that our brain creates. We've talked about that. But we also have human needs that are really important that they're met, or it's going to lead us down a different path, or it's going to take us out of the flow, which I love just being in the flow. It's when things are happening and working great. And the sooner you can learn about these and be intentional about them, the more often that you're going to be in the flow. So I want to talk about them. They're human needs that we all have. And I want you to keep this in mind. Our unconscious brain, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is seeking these and seeking to find them. And when it is not finding them, it will go on its little way to find a way to meet these needs in a negative or a positive way. So this is where it's really, really important that we pay attention to this. So I'm going to run through them. You might want to write them down. We're going to talk about them a lot today. So this is not the only time you're going to hear it. And as always, if you shoot me a note, I will send a handout to you so you've got it, a PDF. But the 6 human needs that I lean into the most that help me stay grounded and centered are certainty, significance, love and connection, variety, growth, contribution. All right. And so these are the very basic things that we need to function and to function at a high level. And one or all of them being off can be the thing that derails you. So these aren't listed in any particular order. All right. After a lot of work, that's my order. After a lot of work, this is the order of hierarchy of my human needs, but it may not be yours. So know when I go through this is mine. You can move stuff around. Growth might be your number one thing. Contribution might be, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you figure out your hierarchy of human needs. So I want to give you an example. So again, certainty is my number one. All right. And when I lack certainty, the wheels come off the bus. And I know this about myself. I know it. And so when I'm feeling this way and I'm feeling like things aren't quite going the way I thought they'd be going, and I'm feeling really funky right now or out of sync, I know something has created uncertainty for me. So let me give you an example of a time that was significant, that if I didn't have this tool, could have totally derailed my future. And this was when Rethink Coaching was launched. Okay. So a little backstory, I was with one of the world's largest coaching organization, and I know everybody can skew the data to how they want it to be, but I was part of this massive organization, and I was a really successful coach with them. And I really had a place, and I felt really good about my position, but I also had a calling to do something different or bigger that I just wasn't able to do in that environment. Not good, not bad, it just was something different. And had made really deep relationships with a couple other coaches within that were in leadership positions that we decided to go and launch our own coaching company. Really exciting times. That rocked certainty, right? Then what really happened was about 120 days into this partnership, things just didn't go well. And some decisions were made that I made to step away from that partnership. And that was big because I've gone from being part of this big organization where I really felt certain about my skills as a coach, and I was meeting the needs of that organization and what they expected from us as coaches, to this new venture that was really going to be exciting. There were some great people I thought to work with that ended up not being the truth, to you got 30 days to launch a company. Because when we dissolved the partnership, we had to do something pretty quick. And we were on the shorter end of that stick because of the way the agreement happened. But again, everything happens, and I'm so grateful it happened the way it did, because without it, Rethink wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be the coach that I am today. However, back to the point, my certainty was rocked. It wasn't a little, it was massively rocked and blown up. Logically, I knew I was a great coach. Changing organizations, having that thing happen with the other people, and launching Rethink did not have an impact on my skill set as a coach. I knew, and this is not ego, I knew I was a great coach, and I knew that skill set was there. However, my certainty about how this was going to unfold, how big Rethink was going to get, how successful Rethink was going to get, there was a lot of uncertainty. So again, it is my number one thing. Now, remember, again, unconscious level, your brain's looking for certainty, significance, variety, love, connection, growth, and contribution. And when it doesn't find it, it can go to the negative to find it. So the quicker you realize one of these is off and you do something intentional about it, the better off you're going to be to prevent your brain from going, I'm going to protect you, and I'm going to go to a really negative behavior because it's comfortable and it's familiar and it creates certainty for me. All right. So the quicker you can realize this and get back in line, the better off you're going to be. So again, for me, certainty, if that is off, everything in my world is off. So how did I use the tool? Well, I sat down immediately and said, okay, what am I feeling uncertain about? And I just let my brain dump it out. I mean, I let it go. I knew I was certain about my skill set. I knew I was certain about being able to move clients forward. I knew that. What I had to figure out is what is creating this massive uncertainty. And it feels so big when you're holding it in your brain. It feels so big when you're not giving it conscious attention. It's because your brain is just running crazy with it. So I sat down and wrote out everything that I was feeling uncertain about. And I will share this. Finances were one of them. I went from a place of having a great position, an abundant number of clients and different things going on, to spending money to launch a company, buying and paying for and doing what it took to get this company off the ground, from buying the domain from somebody else to moving forward. There was some uncertainty around finances. All right. So I had to figure out, how am I going to create certainty? Well, number one, I went to my investment portfolio and I'm like, okay, we're fine. Number two, I started to look at what is my growth trajectory to bring the income in that I want to have to feel good about where I was and where I want to be. What can I do to create that certainty? As soon as I started hammering away at the uncertainty and putting a plan in place to make it cert, I started to feel so much more relief in my life. And that piece of it was starting to feel good. So again, certainty is my number one, may not be yours. Same thing about significance, about love and connection, about variety, about growth, about contribution. One or all of these can be off. And it is the feeling you have where you just feel funky, out of sync, whatever you want to call it. For me, I just know when I'm feeling off balance or out of sync, I need to visit these. So let's just go through the list. Significance. And it's not like ego significance, like, look at me, I'm phenomenal, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm kicking ass, I just have this great life, I drive a great car, have a great house. That's not the significance that I'm talking about. It is about a feeling of being significant in your own skin and what you're able to do and how you're able to do it. So a lot of times our brain gets in the way and making us feel insignificant. I'm not good enough. I'm not them. I don't know how I'm going to make this startup work. Most startups fail in less than 3 years. It's really about figuring out a way that you can find your significance. And again, not through an ego and not necessarily through just external things. How can I help myself feel significant? Variety. I think that's why a lot of us are entrepreneurs. I was very blessed before I became an entrepreneur in 2001, and I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, so I knew that feeling. But I was very blessed about variety when I worked for Marriott Hotels, which I will say to the day I die, it was the best organization that I have ever worked for from a corporate position. Bill Marriott was a phenomenal leader, but what it provided for me was a ton of variety. ton of variety. Started off in one position, moved through sales, moved through operations, moved into regional work, was on hotel level, regional level, just different things. So I was always having variety coming my way. And that is really important to me. It's the same thing about being an entrepreneur and coaching, right? I have a ton of variety. Each one of my clients is different. And right now, I'm creating even more variety for myself. I'm solid in my coaching organization. I'm very fortunate with what we have going on in that, and that provides a lot of variety. Where else I'm creating some variety to really pump this up and amp it up for myself because I felt like I needed it. Again, I felt a little off or out of sync, is I'm venturing into keynote speaking, and I've hired a coach and I've got a company, and it is challenging me in ways, but it's creating variety. So when I got to that point, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little mundane about this. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was like, I got this. This is awesome. I get variety still, but how can I make the variety even bigger? Because I know I need that. I've put myself in a position of discomfort to grow and experience variety. So you might need to do something like that for yourself. Where do I have variety in what I'm doing? What can I do to create it? And even if I have variety in that, do I need a little bit more? What can I do to shake things up and to create it? Loving connection. This is one that I want to take a moment and spend some time on because I feel like loving connection has really been messed with over the last few years with the pandemic. Our world was shaken up. There were a lot of rules, a lot of restrictions. We went from, a lot of us going into offices to not being able to be around people. You couldn't come to an office. You were isolated and your only connection was via Zoom. Okay, Zoom is great, but it doesn't replace the human to human connection and love. I've always been blessed with the organizations that I created or worked for that relationships ran deep professionally. And I loved the people I worked with, not in a romantic or sexual way, but I just loved them. And the whole pandemic thing, we have an office at Regis. We couldn't go there. We had to come home. We had to do everything via Zoom, and we lost a lot of loving connection. And I feel like that's still hanging out there. And sadly, I think there's a whole generation that's going to be feeling this for a lot longer than those of us who only felt that disconnect for a little while. And that was our younger folks that were maybe in college or their early careers where they weren't able to be in that space that we were so fortunate to have had for a long time before this happened. So we have to become intentional about loving connection. And I've noticed this with some of my clients. They're resisting going back to an office. They're resisting going into a space where they're connected with other people. And so because it just became the norm, like we couldn't do it, right? At first we thought we're all going to die if we did it. And then whatever your beliefs were about what was happening, there were rules and laws that prevented us from doing certain things. So this is one that I think we all need to maybe move up a little bit more on our list, is really asking ourselves, am I creating a way to feel connected and love? And so if you work for a virtual company, that's awesome, but go meet people for coffee, go meet people for lunch, do whatever you can do to feel that. So for me, this one's important. Again, I'm very fortunate in our organization that I have that, but I had to also get myself out of the place of I can just work from home 24/7 because I really could. But now I am doing things like speaking at events, or I'm going to different conferences and putting myself in a place that I feel connected. So pay attention to that one. I think we've become numb to it just because we were forced to. And if you're not intentional about that one and give it some true attention, you might think you're okay, but you might really be needing to tap into that. Growth is another one for me, which is big. And I think it's just because it's so ingrained in my head and it didn't matter what was going on with the pandemic or not, or my life or my business. And that's growth. And this is a valuable lesson I learned from my previous mentor, coach, if you will, Diana Kokuska taught me this, is that you never slide into home plate. Never. And if you feel like you have, it's because you've stopped growing. And what you're actually doing is you're not moving forward anymore, you're moving backward. So growth has always been, ever since we've had that conversation back, probably 2010, always a big part of my world. And so asking yourself, where are you on this? Are you contributing to your growth? Have you grown a little stale in that? For me, it's not an option. I love growth. I love learning. I love doing different things. That's why I've got multiple coaches. That's why I'm doing going to different conferences as a participant, not as a keynote. I'm going as a participant so I can learn, because the more I learn and grow, the more I can give to my clients, the more I can give to my organization, the more I can give to my relationships, the more I can give to my spouse. That is key. And so this could be an area that you may have gotten a little, I don't want to say lazy, but a little complacent in, because a lot of us have mastered our skill and feel really good about it and have maybe taken our foot off the gas of growth. But it's a really important human need to be addressing. And so take a peek at this and see, what are you doing that's maybe not in your best interest for growth? And then the last one is contribution. And I think this is important for us just as people. How am I contributing? How am I giving back? And there have been different times in my career when I was younger and maybe more driven on a title and an income than giving back. But now at this stage of life and career, this is a really important part. It's not about the money, it's about what the money can do. And it's not about, oh, I'm really talented in this area of coaching and leading and speaking. It's, how am I going to give this out and give it back? So one thing for us in terms of contribution at Rethink Coaching, every one of my coaches, we have a gratis client. We do it for 90 days. We think everybody deserves the opportunity. We identify people throughout our conversations that might be in need of some help, and we contribute back at no cost. Now, what we know happens is after 90 days, we've usually partnered with somebody to help them get into a place of a better financial situation. They may continue to grow with us, or they may need to grow a little while longer and come back to us. That's not why we do it. But what's cool to see is when we give, we get back. And again, that's not the reason we do it, but contribution to somebody that can really be impacted in a positive way about what you do, and contribution with no attachment to the outcome. If I coach somebody for 90 days and I never hear from them again, I never see them again, it's okay. It's not about that glory. It's not about anything other than doing something for someone with no expectation of anything in return. And so, are you contributing? Now, that's my personal motto. As soon as we formed Rethink, we agreed that that would be part of who we are. And every coach that comes on knows that's part of our culture, and they participate in it as well. And this is how we contribute back. So that is a big one. I find when I am in a place that I need a little kick in the pants, I need to contribute a little bit more. And I need to go volunteer, or I need to work at an organization for free to help out. Just, there's a lot of different ways that you can contribute. And so going through these again and figuring out which are most important to you and where they belong in your hierarchy is really important, because your unconscious mind is doing it. And I know that I talk about this a lot, but this is just how we work. And it's happening. It's happening regardless if you give it attention or not. And so I always think, why wouldn't I want to be more in control of it than just letting my little primitive brain run the roads with it and just let it do whatever it needs to do to find these things and maybe create certainty, significance, variety, love, connection, growth, and contribution in a bad way. I mean, think about love and connection. Whether it's a dysfunctional relationship at home or a dysfunctional relationship with your peers or whatever it is, as long as the brain feels love and connection, it's not quantifying or qualifying, is this good or bad? It's just seeking it. And it may go seek it in places that don't serve you. Same thing with certainty. It can go find certainty in some really bad habits: poor eating, poor nutrition, poor health habits. It can go find certainty in places that will calm it down, but it's not positive. And so you have to take control of this. You must take control of this, because your brain is busy in the background doing it without you. And it's just like your thoughts, right? We have 60,000 thoughts a day. 80% of them are negative. I get to choose the thoughts that I hang on to. I get to choose how these human needs are being met. And when I don't is when I feel off, out of sync, out of balance. Maybe I'm not moving forward towards my goal because these things are interfering. So I'm going to ask you to do something. I'm going to ask you to take out a piece of paper. And I'm going to ask you to write these things down. So if you're listening to this in your car or whatever, just make a note that about 21 minutes in, I'm going to read these off to you again, that you need to write them down. Significance, certainty, love and connection, variety, growth, contribution. I read them in a random order. And you choose what your hierarchy is. and you start working on ways to create the certainty that you want versus the certainty that you have. You start being able to have a plan in place that allows you to control this and have the positives of this versus the negative. And the first minute you feel out of sync, out of balance, you feel like your foundation has been rocked, I want you to turn to this and say, which one of my needs has been rocked? Which one of my needs is not being met? What is causing this feeling of being off balance or being out of sync? And identifying it quickly and putting a plan together. This is not a one and done. I cannot stress it enough. The way that I find certainty today is so different than I found certainty 2 years ago. If I would have left it as that, I wouldn't be where I am today. So this is not, I'm going to do this once. I'm going to write it on a piece of paper like you said to do, and I'm going to go put it on my shelf or put it in a drawer because I know what I need to do. That's not how it works. This is something that you need to have at your fingertips at all times, because even when you set off to do a new task, all right? So I'm going to just go to what I'm doing right now. I speak all the time. I've been a presenter a million times. I've spoke on stage in front of thousands of people and 5 people. However, moving into this different arena is making me feel uncertain. And I was on a call with my coach, and the reality hit that, kind of like when we launched Rethink. I'm a great coach. I had all of this information that led me to believe that everything was going to be okay. It's the same thing with this venture. I speak every day. I speak to you guys on a podcast. I speak on stage. I speak to groups. I do this work. But all of a sudden, putting myself in the position of being a paid speaker made me feel certain. And I had to go create the certainty around it. And so on that conversation with my coach, it came up and I'm like, this is so silly, but I'm feeling really uneasy about this. And I went back to immediately pulled paper out, and then I have this done on, and I spent some time saying, okay, let's go through this and figure this out. And the second I did that, breakthrough. Second I did that, confidence. Second I did that, I'm moving forward. The second I did that, I got back into the flow. So please do not treat this as a one and done exercise. This is a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, whatever you got to do. When you're out of the zone or when you're out of the flow, you turn to this. So take some time with this, please. And if you need help, you can always find me on social, easy, on Instagram. Tony M, like Martin Caliendo, is my Instagram handle. Tony@rethinkcoaching.com is my email address. Just Google me. You'll find my cell phone. You'll find probably my blood type out there. I'm everywhere, all over the internet, and do not ever hesitate to reach out. And especially about these tools that we introduce on this podcast, if you need some help with it, please reach out. No, I'm not going to turn on a timer and start charging you by the minute. I'm not going to do that. If you're struggling and you just need a call, please reach out. We'll be there to help you out. It, again, is my place in contribution. So you're really going to be helping one of my basic needs if you reach out for help. So with that, team, go have an amazing week. I'll talk to you next week. Go work on your human needs. We'll talk to you soon. Go make it a great week. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.